Everybody, and welcome back to the greatest show in the universe. I'm your host, Zion, and this is yet another edition of our weekly developer podcast. Last week I actually pre recorded the podcast so I could play it for you guys the following week, and I'm actually going to do the same this week as well. So, because of my schedule ever changing and because of how busy I've been lately, I'm actually going to start pre-recording the podcast and play them the following week. Last week we actually talked about adding RTS elements into the game. So as you can see here, I have ship selected. The idea here is to add additional units to the game. So right now you actually can't see what the previous units were, but they were all different kind of tree units, so little tree minions. And we only had the 4, but only 2 were actually units that you could actually recruit. These 2 over here you actually couldn't even do anything with. So as far as I know, these units are actually being repurposed for something else, and we're actually going to be having new units in the game sometime in the near future. So I had talked about potentially implementing flying units as well as heavy tank units. And these would be units that you would use for the purpose for RTS. So planet versus planet invasions, which would serve as kind of like a framework that would be later developed into guild versus guild invasions, or we'll just call it guild wars, or something along those lines. Unlike last week, I'm actually a little bit more prepared this week. Because typically what I do, the format is that I'll record a podcast, and then I will start a thread in the forums, and then I'll list all the different subjects and topics that we covered in the podcast and the forums, so people can go ahead and give us our feedback on the different things that we had talked about in the podcast. So this time, I actually did kind of things in reverse. So I did the forum first, and I have this long list of different things that I want to talk about in this podcast. So the forum post is basically already done. So now I'm just going to go ahead and talk about all the different things that I mentioned in this forum post. Last time, when I was talking about the RTS elements, I was talking about how in the future we were going to be implementing traps. So since then, we actually did implement the traps into the game. So as you can see here, we have this the basic trap, which is kind of like a bear trap. When you crawl over this, it actually kind of snaps at you, and it immobilizes you, so it kind of stuns you for a few seconds, and it does, moderate damage. It doesn't really do all that much damage. So down here, oh, and by the way, this is the test server, which is why I have all this crazy amount of resources over here. This isn't my actual planet. So we see all the different traps. These are spike traps, these are bomb traps, and these are trampolines. So I'm actually going to be talking about each one of these individually. When it comes time in that part of the podcast to actually discuss these things, I'll go ahead and just show you guys that since last week, we've actually went ahead and implemented this. So this actually came out a lot sooner than I thought it was going to be. I thought we wouldn't be seeing this for another week or 2, but it's already in the game. So the next thing you guys have to look forward to, I think December 7th, which is about a week from now, we're actually going to be releasing Battle Royale mode. So it's going to be a new game mode. When you go over here into arenas, you should have a new arena for Battle Royale, perhaps down here. And the way that's going to work, from what I understand, it's going to be something like 20 or 30 players are going to all enter the arena at the same time. And then as you're battling one another, you're actually going to be fighting an entire planet rather than a flat map. And the planet is going to start to crumble. So the area in which you have to fight each other is going to begin to shrink. And the idea is to stay alive to the end, and whoever is like the final person left alive is going to be the one. So I would anticipate these battles will probably be a little bit longer than your regular arenas. So generally a regular arena, my average time is about 3 minutes. So I would assume that with so many people and with a much larger map, these battles might go for 5 minutes or longer. So we'll just have to wait and see until Battle Royale comes out next week before I can, further comment on that. And I'm actually going to do like a very detailed breakdown of all the different mechanics in Battle Royale once that comes out, and discuss all the things that we could potentially change or kind of polish as far as that game mode is concerned. So right now, I'm actually going to be talking about Planet Edit. So this is probably like the fifth podcast where we talked about Planet Edit. But because of the fact that these traps were just released, this is pretty much my main focus right now. To polish these traps and get them to where they need to be. Because right now they're kind of bare bones. So we'll go ahead and get this started. So again, I already started the forum post, so you guys can just go to this link here and kind of follow along. We have please add descriptions for the 3 icons. So this is something I talked about previously. When you go into Planet Editor over here, you don't actually have descriptions. So when I click on it like this, you don't actually see, like, it should have a pop-up menu. So when you click on it like this, you should kind of get like a box with info, and it should explain what each of these different things are. Now, these 2 here on the side are pretty intuitive. This one is used for walls, so you could place walls, and as you can see, my maximum capacity is 45. So once I reach that, I can no longer place any walls. So if I try to hit OK, it's going to say too many walls. So that's what this is for. It's pretty intuitive. You don't really need a too detailed of an explanation for that. And then here is your total amount of edits. That's what this shovel is for. And when you actually click on this, it says, do you need more shovels? And it'll tell you how you can earn more of these shovels. But it doesn't actually give you any kind of info. So there's no like information screen. So what I think should happen here is this whole thing here, this dialogue here, should kind of be in this corner here, and then maybe with this moved over here, and then the info is on this side. Or what you could potentially do is have like a gem icon, maybe beneath or to the side or something, and then when you click the gem icon, then you get this pop-up. But my idea is when you click on these individual kind of markers here, you should get like a pop-up info screen explaining which of each of these things do. So again, this one's for walls. This is your maximum capacity for walls. This is your maximum capacity for your different edits. So each thing you do, as far as the sidebar here, is going to take up edits. So this was to place a mountain. That took about 1. So actually, let me reset so I don't actually wind up using anything. So yeah, I think that takes up 1. No, actually 2. Placing some environmental, so bushes, trees, stuff like that. Flora and fauna. This will take up 1. The different roads, I think that also takes up 1. So again, each of these things should have some kind of information attached to it, so you know exactly what each of these things do. Now, I had mentioned in a previous podcast that I had no idea what this down here does, and I still have no idea what this one here in the middle. So as you can see, you have this road, and then you have like these 2 arrow signs. I have no idea what this is for. What I originally thought this was for was to tell you what the maximum distance is for what you can place your landing zone from your town hall. So if we were to take this kind of at like face value, I would assume that this means that my landing zone is exactly 10 cells away from the town hall. That's what I thought this was originally for, but I don't think that's what it's actually for. So let's see, maybe it has something to do with the road. So no, it doesn't. I thought it might be maximum capacity for roads, but apparently it is not. So again, I have no idea what this is for, because when you actually try to move the landing zone, you'll find that, oh, actually, see, before, I wasn't actually allowed to move it aside here. But now it looks like I can. It looks like I can move it a little bit further away now. Well, actually, maybe that's why, maybe the reason why I can't move it here is because there's no road. So let's see if I place a road. Can I move it now? Well, go ahead and hit yes. Oh, yes, I can. Okay. All right, so this makes so much more sense now. So in the past, I kind of have criticized the fact that it seemed to me that you couldn't actually move. So now I'm seeing this update. But what's going on here? So it does look like it. Okay. See, I'm figuring this out in real time, guys. You're learning as I'm learning. So it looks like this is indeed how far you can place it from the town hall. And the reason why you can't just move it to a random area is because there's no actual road attached to it. So you actually have to place a road first in order to move your landing zone. So now that I know that, I'm actually going to use the knowledge that I've just gained to go ahead and redesign my actual planet. Because for the longest time, I've been wanting to move the landing zone a little bit more to the left. And the reason for that is, so let me go ahead and get rid of this. Get rid of it again. I'm not sure what I just did, but let's reload the planet here. But see, when you're looking at the bottommost gate, and then you look at where... Oh, okay, so I have to go and change the landing. Put the landing zone over here. And let's see... Okay, I don't have to reload my planet. Oops, what am I doing? We'll go ahead and delete this. So as you guys can see here, this is where the gate is, and this is where the landing zone is. What I kind of want to do is kind of center it. So I wanted to move it over slightly so that it's kind of like a straight line to the first gate. So for the longest time, I just wanted to take the landing zone and literally just move it over by one cell. And I was not actually able to do that. And now that I've placed the roads here, I've learned that you actually have to place the road first, then move the landing zone over. So now that I know how to do that, I could go ahead and implement this into my world design, not the test world. So we already kind of discussed how there should be information for each of these different icons. So please add right-click option to remove terrain paints. So let's see if that's actually been implemented. So what happens is, let me actually zoom in on the planet here. When you place an object, so let's say I have mountains selected. I place a mountain, so that is with left click. When I press right click, I remove the mountain. So left click to place, right click to get rid of it. So when you actually place down, let's say the flora and fauna, so the second option, place it down with left click again, and you press right click to remove it. With roads, it's the same thing, but with roads, you can actually press either right click or left click. It actually doesn't matter. It works both ways. And with the fences, let's see if this works now. Yeah, so fences seem to work now. Let's see if we... Okay, so they did fix, I mean, not fences, walls. You could call it fence, it doesn't really. Or maybe not. So I just left click. If I right click here, it actually just adds more walls. They actually haven't fixed walls yet. So let's see if they fixed terrain paint. So if I select the terrain paint and I place it down, if I right click it, it doesn't do anything. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I'm right clicking like crazy and nothing's happening. So you actually have to hit the redo button after you've placed the terrain paint if you want to get rid of it. So let's say I put this stone terrain paint down here, this kind of cobblestone road. If I don't want to keep this here, if I want to actually get rid of it, I can't right click it to get rid of it. I actually have to hit undo. So that's a little annoying because you have this functionality with all of these different icons where if you right click it, you can get rid of it, but it doesn't seem to work for terrain paints. So that's one thing that I had brought up in a few podcasts ago when I briefly talked about the new Planet Editor. What else do we have here? So yeah, I just talked about removing walls. So I'll place walls real quick and you'll see this is what happens. Well, actually that's kind of, place it somewhere else. Because that was a 5-sided cell. They're normally 6-sided. Let's place walls here. Okay, here we go, 6-sided. So this is what happens. Look at all these different segments. When I right-click this segment, it gets rid of the wall. When I right-click this segment, it actually adds a wall. We'll go undo. If I right-click this segment, it adds a wall. This adds a wall. And this one adds a wall. And that one adds a wall as well. So you have 6 sides, and the only side which works is this one here. this southeastern side. So this is a problem. Anytime you try to actually right-click any other side of the wall, it just adds more walls. How it should work is no matter which wall you choose, when you right-click it, it should get rid of it, just like this one. So the way this segment here, this side of the wall works, is how every single side should work, instead of this only being available to this wall. And now it's just, that's weird. I'm sitting here saying how it only affects one wall, and now it just added a wall. What just happened there? Can I recreate that? Maybe I just accidentally hit the wrong button. But yeah, if you hit right click on any other wall, it just adds more walls instead of deleting the walls that you've already placed. So it seems like that bug has not been fixed yet. So what else do we have? Drag and move flora and fauna. So this is another big one. Oops. So if we go back in the planet editor and we were to place down some, trees or bushes or rocks or something, you can see that I can change the different, rocks, trees, the flora and fauna. So all the different decorations here. So you can place it by right-clicking, and then to change it, you actually right-click to remove it. Right. So this is what happens. So actually, let's get rid of it. You choose flora and fauna. You can place it down with left-click. Then if you keep pressing left-click on it, you can actually change to different flora and fauna, but you can't actually move it. So let's say I hit accept, and it's on the planet, I can't actually move it. So as you can see, as I select it, all it does is kind of, it shows that I'm selecting it, but it won't actually move. So like let's say I select any one of these buildings, once I click it, I can move it. But I actually can't move the flora and fauna. So, no, that's not the right one. There we go. So that's another issue. I would like to be able to select flora and fauna and then be able to move it. But because of the fact that I don't think this was actually available before, you were able to click on it and actually change to different flora and fauna here. So this seems like it's a new option. I don't think I was actually able to do this before. So you might not actually even need to move it now. So let's say I wanted this right here. So, okay, I got it. It seems like I got it on my first try. So let's say I wanted this the same exact one over here. All I would have to do is cycle through it till I got the right one. So let's see. So there we go. That seems to be the right one. And the other thing is you can't rotate it. So let's say I wanted this bush here to be in this corner here, and then like this group of rocks to be in this corner here. I can't actually do that. So two things to add here, potentially, is maybe the ability that once you've placed it, and let's say you hit accept, you should be able to click on it, and you should be able to rotate it if you want, and you should be able to drag and move it. So once you click on it, I should be able to move it just like, any regular building. So those are two suggestions right there. The ability to rotate flora and fauna and be able to drag and move it. So what else do we have? Flexibility with the landing zone. This is what I was talking about before. So I was showing even in this screenshot. Here's the town hall, the walls, or the southern gate. I wanted to take the landing zone and move it over by one cell so it kind of lines up with the gate, so it's kind of centered. So you can draw a straight line, so a straight road all the way down. And I wasn't actually able to do that before. Now it seems like you can do it. All you have to do is place a road there first, so it has something to connect to. So now that I've learned that, I can basically get rid of 5. 5 is already okay. What else do we have? Number 6. Please show the name of the trap when it is selected. So we just recently had the addition of adding traps to the game. So we'll go ahead and we'll select bombs for it. So you can see here when I select on bombs, I can rotate it and I can hit info. But you can see when I have it selected, no name pops up. So if I select firewall, or fire tower, you see it says fire tower level 6. So you have the information right here on the screen. When I click on bomb, no information. It doesn't say bomb level, whatever level it is. So this would be a bomb level 6. It doesn't say bomb level 6, like it says fire tower level 6. So that's a little bit of an issue. When you click on your different traps, you don't know what level they are, and sometimes it makes it a little bit harder to select. So for instance, I have this bear trap right here next to this wall. Sometimes what will happen is when you click on this, you actually don't know that it's selected, because like when you click on fire tower, you know the fire tower is selected because it says fire tower. So you'll click on this trap and you won't know that it's selected, and then you might click a couple of times, and then you'll wind up clicking on the gate by accident or clicking on something else by accident. So that gets a little frustrating. It would be better if you had like the name of the thing that you have selected above it and its level. So what else do we actually have? Increase the maximum number of walls. So when you go into the planet editor, you can see the maximum number of walls is 45. So let's go ahead and kind of resituate this. So what I have on my planet is kind of a formation that looks like this. Kind of looks like, or shovel. Oh, right. Let's go ahead and add a bunch of those. It looks like this. So as you can see here, I have 45 out of 45 now. So I've reached my maximum capacity. If I want to add one more, say right here, now you can see it's gone up to 49. So this is why I wanted to increase the maximum number of walls from 45 to 50 to allow me to place this extra wall right here. So if you actually go on my planet, this is what it looks like right now. It has these 3 walls just like this. I want to actually be able to place a 4th wall right here so that the landing zone has, it's basically completely walled around it. And in order to do that, that would require a higher capacity than what is currently available. So that's kind of why I want to increase the maximum capacity from 45 up into 50 to allow me to create this kind of formation just like this. So that should be good for that. Please include damage info for traps. So that's another one, like I was saying before. Not only when you click on a trap, so actually let's get out of editor. It doesn't actually say the name or level of the trap like it does for like fire tower, but when you go into info for fire tower, you'll have both the HP and the damage. So it'll show both of these things. Now traps actually don't have any kind of HP. They just trigger as soon as you step over it, and then the trap will engage. But it doesn't give you how much damage it does. So you'll see later on in this forum thread, if you scroll down, I actually do provide the values for the different damage for the different levels. So that took some testing to figure out what the actual damage values were. But initially I had no idea because again, when you go to info, when you select the trap and go to info, it doesn't actually show the damage counter. So you have no idea how much damage your trap does at base level. And every time you upgrade it, you don't know how much it's being upgraded by. So after some testing, I went ahead and compiled the different values for the different levels. So I'll go ahead and explain that later. But that's something we kind of need to add to our info when you select traps. We need to have a damage counter. And the HP counter is kind of like purposeless because none of the traps have any kind of HP. So we don't even really need this HP here. You can just replace it with the damage. So I don't even know why the HP is there, since none of the traps have HP in the first place. So number 9 is fix the texture glitch with level 6 mortars. So you guys can see here, I've maxed out these mortars here. They're level 6. So we'll go ahead and kind of center that on the frame here. And as you zoom in, you can see that you have this kind of glitch. So I actually noticed this a while back. It had a similar problem with the mines. So when you would upgrade mines to level 6, this gray part here would also be purple. But this was a long time ago. This was several weeks ago, maybe even months ago. But it had kind of a similar issue. It would turn this purple color. but it would only happen at level 6 mines. It wouldn't happen for any other level. And likewise with mortar, it only happens with level 6 mortars. So this is a level 4 mortar. You'll see, so you can see no graphic glitches here. Nothing wrong with the textures. If I upgrade it to level 5, you can see again, absolutely nothing wrong with it. The textures are working just fine. Now watch what happens when we upgrade it. Okay, we actually need more Aquium, so let's go ahead and buy some more Aquium. Now watch what happens when we upgrade it to level 6. You can see it has this texture glitch. It turns purple. So this is something we need to fix. It's kind of weird looking that it's glowing purple like that. It probably should be wooden color, but for some reason when you maximally upgrade, this also level 6? No, okay, this is level 5. Again, you can see level 5, nothing wrong with it. As soon as it gets to level 6, that's when it turns purple. And again, the magic mines actually used to do this as well, but this was a long time ago. It was a glitch that I noticed probably a few months ago. But that has since been patched, and now we have this issue with the mortars. So, number 10, I'm not going to bother reading this entire paragraph. Basically what happens is when you upgrade the traps, each individual level has no kind of visual display discerning it from one level from another. So for instance, this here is level 1, and this one here I think is maxed out, yeah, level 6. So as you can see here, level 1 and level 6, there's no discernible difference. You can't tell the difference. So we can look at bombs. This is level 6. So let's try to find a level 1. That's a level 5. Okay, so this is level 6. This is level 5. I think this is level 1. Yes. So this is 6, 5, and 1. As you can see, there is absolutely no difference between each of these levels. So let's go ahead and just choose a random turret. So like Ice Tower. Can we zoom in any further? No, I guess not. So look at Ice Tower. Now we'll go ahead and upgrade it. You can see it just changed. So it went from this cylindrical shape to now kind of a box shape. So we'll go ahead and add more Aquium. And we'll go ahead and upgrade it again. So now you can see that it went from that box shape to a more kind of detailed box shape. Now it has kind of this gray or white stone with this kind of blue frost coming off of it. So we'll go ahead and upgrade that again. And now you can see it's starting to have like these borders that are protruding upwards. So we'll go ahead and we'll add more Aquium. We'll go to level 5 now. Now you can see the base got larger, and now you have like these frost borders on the base. And we'll go ahead and just max this out and show you what the final level looks like. And this is the final level. So now it's much more detailed, and it even has like a frost crystal floating above it. So as you can see, every time that you level up a turret, or literally any other building for that matter, it doesn't matter if it's a turret or if it's just like a house or a ship, every time you upgrade something, the actual model changes, it updates. So it gets more elaborate, more detailed. Generally, it'll become bigger, larger, so each level is distinguished from the next level. You can tell what level any object is by looking at it because of the fact that every time you upgrade something, it updates its model. So right now with traps, this actually does not happen. So the difference, as you can see, this is level 6, this is level 5, and this is level 1. There is absolutely no visual way to discern one trap from another. They all look exactly the same. So you just by looking at it, you can't tell what level it is. So that's something we've got to add to the game. We have to make it so that each level distinguishes itself from one another. So the physical model actually has to update and change. So that was number 10. So 11. So I want to increase the area of effect for traps. So let's go ahead and we'll select, for instance, this bear trap. So as you can see, when you select a trap and you go to move it, this is the total size of the cell, this green shape here, and that trap is how much of that cell that it actually occupies. So you can see here, the trap only occupies about a quarter or maybe 1/5, so about 20% of an entire cell. So let's say this is the entire cell, it only occupies a fraction of that cell. So if you're walking around here, so on the back side of this trap here, you won't actually set off the trap. You have to actually walk directly in the path of the trap and stand directly on top of it in order to engage the trap. Otherwise, the trap won't even spring. So the problem here is the area of effect of these traps are so small because of the fact that it doesn't take up an entire cell. It only takes up a fraction of a cell. So what you'll find a lot of the times is you'll place a trap and then you go to test your game. So we'll actually do that right now. I'll put the trap right here. So as you can see, it is literally right in front of the landing zone. Okay? Right in front of the landing zone. Now we'll go to test it. Go invade and practice. As you saw, it was right in front of... Okay, so this time we were actually able to trigger it. But what I found in previous tests is you'll wind up running right past it and the trap won't actually engage. So let's actually try to move some of these things so I'm not getting shot. So we'll kind of rotate this. So right here, okay. So again, we'll take notice where the trap is and we'll try to set it off again. So the trap was right around here. As you can see, there we go, we finally set it off. Sometimes the trap won't actually engage. And the reason for this is because of the area of effect of the trap. But we'll try to move it a little bit. There we go. The area of effect is too small. So what I propose is to actually either increase the size of the trap or keep the trap the same size and slightly increase its area of effect. Or what you could potentially do is every time you upgrade a trap, you upgrade its area of effect. So maybe at its base level, its area of effect is the same size as the trap itself. And as you upgrade it, it kind of expands a little bit outward. That way, so let's see where the position of the trap is right here. So let's try to move it again. So see where the trap is right now. Let's say you're standing right about here. So as you can see, you're about a foot away from the trap. What would happen is as you upgrade the trap, it increases its area of effect so you can set off the trap even without standing directly on it. So in the case of this bear trap, you could stand right about here and you would still set it off instead of having to walk directly on top of it. So if this is the trap, instead of having to be right on top of it, you can set it off from a small distance. So say right about here, it would still engage and trap you. That's my idea, is to expand the area of effect. That way traps become a little bit more useful and you don't wind up running right past them, which honestly is what happens probably like 9 out of 10 times. Is you'll wind up running right past the trap and the trap actually won't even engage. So it just kind of feels like a waste of space because, again, this takes up a whole cell and you can potentially run right past it without even engaging it, when you could just replace it and put something that would take up a whole cell and actually be of some use. It would have some function. So with the Frost Tower, there's no running past that. Once you're in its area where it can target you, this thing is going to shoot at you regardless of where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're 1 foot away or 10 feet away, the Frost Tower is going to shoot at you. But with these traps, even though it occupies this cell, it's not going to engage if you enter this cell. You have to literally walk right on top of the trap to engage it. So if you increase its area of effect so that you can set it off maybe a short distance away, so say right over here, that would increase the functionality of the trap and make it more useful. So that's kind of what I want to do with that. So the trampoline, I have a lot of things to say about the trampoline. I'm not sure if I want to talk about it right now, but I've tested all of these different traps, and the trampoline seems to be the most useless. It only seems to be good at one thing, And the one thing that it's good at is actually very frustrating, but I'll actually probably cover that later because I probably spent the last couple of days arguing about the usefulness of this particular trap, trampolines. I really don't like this trap. I mean, honestly, I think they should just repurpose it or get rid of it entirely. But again, I'll return to that later. So I was saying before how I was testing the different traps because they don't actually provide any information as to how much damage they do. So I ran a number of tests, and what I did was found out what the damage was at level 1 and what the damage was at level 6, which is its maximum level. And that way you can figure out how much each level provides as far as a damage bonus. So, for instance, spikes at level 1, its damage is 30, and at level 6, its damage is 36. So it's plus 1 damage per level. For bombs, its base damage at level 1 is 140, and at level 6, which is its max level, it's 175. So every level, it's plus 7 damage for bombs. Trampolines, it's also plus 1. And then I found something a little bit interesting about the bear traps. So the basic traps, so the ones that actually stun you, these here, that we were kind of testing before, these operate a little bit differently. Its base damage is 35, but its max damage at level 6 is 42. So if you started at 35 at level 1, and let's say you did plus 1 damage per level, it would be 36 at 2, and 37, and 38, and 39, and then 40. So if it was just plus 1 damage per level, its maximum damage would be 40. But for some reason, it's 42. So it gets a plus 2 damage somewhere kind of randomly. I don't know where this plus 2 damage comes from. So because of this fact, that right now the bear trap kind of doesn't make sense in terms of scaling for each level. It just kind of gets a random 2 damage boost somewhere. What I actually went ahead and did was kind of make suggestions on how each of these levels should scale, and also kind to better balance the damage and the effects of these different traps. So we'll go ahead and I'll show you kind of one of the problems I have for one of the other traps. So for instance, spikes. So the problem with spikes is that they actually move way too slow. So let's try to find a level. So that's a level 6. We'll try to kind of drag this down here. Now let's try to find a level 1. This level 1? Okay. So I'll show you guys the difference between a level 1 spike and a level 6. So let's try to... Alright, that sounds... Let's just make a road so I know exactly where these things are. Road. Okay, so I know exactly where this is. Alright, so this one was level 1. So I'll go ahead and show you guys exactly what this looks like. Go to practice. So this is level 1 spike. Now before I step on it, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the damage, and we're going to look at how fast the spikes actually move, and we're going to see how many times the spikes actually attack. So 30 damage. Now watch how slow this attacks. That's 3, that's 4. And then that's it. So what you saw was a level 1 spikes attacks you 4 times. It does 30 damage each. And the time in between each attack is probably about 2 seconds. Now we'll go ahead and we'll move over to the level 6 spikes. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, a couple of things to notice here. 1, the damage increase. It went from 30 to 36. Number 2, the maximum times it attacks you also increased. It was 4 at level 1, then it attacks you 6 times at level 6. On top of that, the spikes actually move quicker. So as you saw when I first walked over the level 1 spikes, the spikes moved really slowly. It was kind of 1 or 2 seconds in between each attack. With the level 6 spikes, it was more like half a second. It was attack, 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 attack. It was much quicker. So a couple of things I want to do for balance for spikes is 2 things right from the get-go. A, it should not have a maximum number of attacks. So once you step over spikes and it starts flickering on and off, instead of doing that, so we'll go ahead and we'll re-enter practice mode. Watch what happens when you step over the spikes. I step over it, it engages. Now it keeps flickering on and off like this. So I'm not actually stepping on the spikes anymore, and the spikes are still appearing. So this is one of the changes that I would do. Instead of the spikes, once you engage it, flickering on and off like that, what should happen is the spikes only engage when you walk over it. So when you walk over the spikes, it would hit you. Then you walk off, the spikes no longer engage. They go back into the ground. That's it. When you walk back over it again, they re-engage. When you walk back off, they go back in the ground. That's how they should work. Instead of you engage it, and then it flickers on and off. Because what happens when it flickers on and off like that, it gives away its position. So once you see those spikes come up for the first time, because they keep coming back up, you know exactly where those spikes were. Now, if you were to walk over the spikes and it were to hit you the first time, and then recede back into the ground, you might run past it, and you'd be like, huh, I just took damage. Where did that damage come from? I thought I saw some spikes. And you might be running around, and then the spikes might hit you again. So when it recedes back into the ground and it stays in the ground, instead of constantly coming back up, it doesn't give away its position. That way you're not sure exactly where those spikes were. So it's just better for tactical uses, where instead of flickering, it just goes back into the ground. It only engages when you walk back over it. That's number one. Number two, it shouldn't have a maximum number of times it attacks. So as you saw for level 1, it was 4, and level 6, it was 6. Instead of that, it should be infinite. So no matter how many times you run over those spikes, the spikes will engage. It's not like it hits you once or twice, and then that's it, and then they're gone. They should be engaged every time you walk over them, instead of just be a limited number of times thing. So those are two things I want to do. Number 3, the spikes should come out much faster. So we'll go ahead. I'll show you guys one more time what it looks like when you run over to level 1 spikes. Look how slow these things move. Do you see how slow that is? They should move much quicker than that. So I think that the speed should literally be doubled or increased by 50% or something like that. They need to be increased by a very large margin. So right now the spikes move too slow. And then on top of that, I also think it deserves a damage increase, because you look at the different functionality of the trap. So for instance, let's go back to the world view. Bombs. Bombs, the only purpose of a bomb is to explode and do damage. That's it. That's its only functionality. So obviously you want the bombs to do a lot of damage because it has no other functionality. Spikes. Or not spikes, these bear traps here. What these things do is they trap you and immobilize you. So it's like a stun. So not only does it do damage, but it stuns you. So because it has this additive effect, not only does it do damage, but it also stuns you. To balance it, you have to reduce the damage. So it has this effect. It stuns you, and because it stuns, it does less damage. For the bombs, it doesn't have any other additive effect. All it does is explode and does a lot of damage in just, one attack. So because of the spikes, they don't do all of its damage in one attack like bombs do, because you have to stand on them and it kind of flickers on and off. So it attacks in kind of like sessions and increments. What I think it should do is increase the damage, because right now at 36 at level 6, it's kind of too low. It's not enough damage to justify how slow it moves, and the fact that it flickers on and off and gives away its position. So once you've run over it once and you see it flickering, you know to yourself to avoid that area, because the spikes keep flickering on and off. If they didn't flicker like that, if they just engage every time you walk on top of them, you wouldn't know exactly where they're positioned, and you might accidentally walk on top of them again. So some of the things that I did for balance, if you scroll down, so it's the very next post. I talked about ways of balancing each level. So as you can see for traps, it starts at a base damage of 35, and for each level, the damage increases by 1. For spikes, it starts at a damage of 40. So already right off the bat, spikes at its base damage would be doing more damage than it currently does at its maximum level. And then it would get +2 damage per level. So at max level, it would be 50, as opposed to right now, it's 36. So spikes actually are going to get a buff. Bombs also get a slight buff as well. Its starter damage is 140. So at its initial level, at level 1, and it gets +7 per level and ends at level or damage 175. So I can go ahead and show you guys. So bomb level 6, well, I would actually have to run over it. So because it doesn't actually show its damage value. So let me go ahead and run on top of it. And you guys will see it's 175. If I can actually find it. Okay, so that was the trampoline. Let's see if we can find the bomb. Alright, so I can't find it. And now I know where it is. Let's try to do this right about here. So, boom, 175. I don't know if you guys saw that. It kind of moved a little bit quickly. But the max damage is 175. So all I did was slightly increase this. So instead of +7 damage per level, I did +8. So its maximum damage at level 6 is 180. Now the traps actually got a little bit of a nerf because its max damage is 42, and I reduced it from 42 down to 40. So because it got a little bit of a damage nerf, in order to offset that, the first thing I suggested was to increase its stun by about 5 to 10%. So it stuns you slightly longer. And this would actually be very helpful if I knew exactly what the stun times were. So for instance, say like level 1, the stun stuns you for half a second. Then let's say at level 2, it stuns you for 3/4 of a second. Then say at level 3, it stuns you for 1 second. Then say at level 4, it stuns you for like 1 1/4 second. Then let's say at level 5, it stuns you at 1 1/2 second. And then say at level 6, it stuns you for 2 seconds. So that would give you an idea. So that's 0.25 seconds per level. Because right now, I don't know what the stun effect is for each level, there's no way for me to positively scale this to know exactly what the amount should be at level 6. So this would require further testing, but I think it should be slightly increased by a very small margin, so by like 5 or 10% to offset the fact that I reduced the damage. So it went from 42 to 40. So the rest of this is just explaining how I wanted to make changes to the spikes, make them faster, make them a permanent trap. So it's not like it only hits you a maximum of 4 to 6 times and then that's it, they're gone. It should always be available, so no matter how many times you run over it, it's still going to hit you. And I also talked about increasing mortar speed. I'm not going to sit here and bore you guys with the different tests that I have done for speed tests. Let's say you take a level 6 frost tower and a level 6 mortar, and you were to look at how quickly, actually, I'll just do this real quick. I really didn't want to bore you guys, but this shouldn't take too long. You guys will see that the ice tower actually attacks quicker. So we'll go ahead and we'll go to practice. Okay, so the mortar is currently glitching out. So we're going to have to try this again. So, okay, before I even go to practice, one of the problems with the mortar is before the mortar can even fire at you and hit you, it has to target you first. So the mortar actually has to turn into your direction, then lock onto you, then fire at you, and once it acquires its target, then it can start to auto-fire at you, but each one of its attacks is slower than the ice tower. So I'll go ahead and show you guys. You saw there, the mortar actually had to turn to start firing at me. Now look at the speed in which the ice tower is hitting me, and look at the speed in which the mortar is hitting me. The ice tower is quicker, as you can see there. So kind of what I want to do with the mortars is increase the mortar fire rate by about 10% or so. So a slight increase for mortar speed, because right now mortars just feel a little too slow. Let's see, next is Okay, for the roads. Okay, so this was, again, at the very beginning of this recording, I had talked about how before I didn't know that you can actually move your landing zone if you actually placed a road first. So here's the problem with the landing zone. Oh, I hit the wrong button. The problem with the landing zone right now. With this layout right here, as you can see, the road goes from the town hall, then it goes around the landing zone, but it's not actually touching the landing zone. This is actually not acceptable. So when you see, if I try to hit select, landing zone and town hall must be connected by the road. You actually have to make it so the road touches the landing zone. So this is a little bit of an issue, and it's a little bit annoying, because as you can see, with the current layout that I have to place one in the middle here, and it kind of makes the sort of pattern that I have going around the landing zone, it makes it ugly. So this is the way I want it to look, but I can't do this because the road isn't actually touching the landing zone itself. Because it's not touching the landing zone itself, this is not an acceptable layout for your Planet Defense, and I actually cannot hit select. It tells me I actually have to make the road connect to the landing zone. So in order to do that, I have to do this, and it messes up my pattern here. So initially, let's try to make so this is kind of what the landing zone looks like in your base game. So without any edits, this is pretty much what the road looks like. It goes from the town hall, it kind of makes this twist right about here, so you kind of get like this elbow formation, and then it connects to your landing zone. So right now, the road actually has to physically touch the landing zone. What I want to do is make it so that you can actually make the road go around the landing zone, so like this for instance. So let's try to draw kind of a pattern like this. So as you can see here, the road is not touching the landing zone, but it's close enough to the landing zone where this shouldn't be a problem. But you cannot actually select this because it's not touching the landing zone itself. So what I want to do is make it so, as you can see here, like the town hall, the landing zone goes around the town, or not the landing zone, the roads. The roads go around the town hall. You can see here, over here with the mines, the roads go around the mines. They don't actually touch the mines like that. They go around the mine. When you look at the arena over here, they go around the arena. They don't actually... Okay, I can't even create a road in that cell. But it goes around the arena. It doesn't physically touch the arena. Over here, when you look at the elemental altars and the undo, none of these roads actually touch any of these objects. If I wanted to make them to touch the object, I could do that, but then it looks ugly. So they actually go around and they form a perimeter around that area. For the landing zone, it's different. It actually has to physically touch the landing zone. And that kind of annoys me. So that kind of messes up the pattern that I want to build. So if I wanted to make, an interesting pattern like I had before, so we'll go ahead and make the same pattern that I had before, just like this. This is the pattern I want. I actually can't do this because none of the roads are physically touching the landing zone. So I kind of want to make a rule where all you have to do is make the road close enough to the landing zone without actually having to touch it for it to be acceptable. So this would be accepted under my new rule. It wouldn't actually have to physically touch the landing. So let's see if I can get an interesting formation even without touching it. So let's see. Maybe I put one here. Something like that. Can I move my landing? Yeah, so here's the problem. Even this would be cool with this triangle formation if I could put the landing zone like right here, but I can only put it in the corners like that. So again, it's a little bit annoying. I would prefer to have the road go around the landing zone without actually touching it. So that's another thing that I kind of want to do. What else do we have here? We're kind of running late at this point. So the other ones, we're at 14 now. is different quests. So no, this is actually not the right one. No, 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 no. Get off. Get off of this. Come on. There we go. So as you can see here, as you upgrade your different buildings and your different defensive structures and whatnot, you have these different quests. So once you meet the terms of the quests, you can actually get Aquium rewards. So for instance, this is upgrade fire tower to level 4. So I have 2 out of 3. So let's go ahead and select a fire tower. Is there another fire tower around here? I have to build one. Let's just build one. So fire tower. So we'll go ahead and move that somewhere where we can more easily see it. Over here. Okay, so we have our fire tower selected. So as you can see for requests, fire tower, upgrade to level 4. So I currently have 2 fire towers that are at least level 4. So we'll go ahead and we'll upgrade this one to level 4. So this should be really quick. It's going to take too long. I think we're already on level 3. So we'll just level it up one more time. So I just leveled up my 3rd fire tower to level 4. So as you can see here, I've met the conditions of this quest, so I can now claim the reward for Aquium. So as you can see, now new quests have popped up. So every time you upgrade a building or structure, once you've met the conditions for upgrading that building, you are rewarded with Aquium. So because we just increased the maximum level for the different defensive structures as well as add traps, I want to start to add quests for upgrading these turrets and these traps now. So before, the maximum level for fire towers was only level 5. The maximum level for mortars was level 4. And the maximum level for ice towers was level 3. We increased all of these to level 6. But the quests stop at what the previous maximum levels were. So ice tower 3, mortars 4, fire tower 5. There's no quests to get any of these to level 6 yet. And because we just introduced traps into the game, so for instance spikes, there's no quests to upgrade any of the traps yet. So one of the things I want to do is add more quests, so you can upgrade your turrets to a higher level, as well as upgrade your traps and get Aquium rewards for doing this. So that's another addition I want to have. And then number 16, so we'll cover 2 more points because we're kind of running out of time here. Number 16 is actually kind of have like a filter on invasions. So this is what happened. Before we had this update for the new planet invasions, where you have to destroy all of these different buildings in order to be rewarded Aquium. So now there's a system where once you, I think, damage 50% of your enemy's base, you get your 1st star. Then I think it's at like 70 or 80%, you get your 2nd star. And then I believe it's 100% to get all 3 stars. And the amount of Aquium that you get for invading a planet is directly tied to the percentage of buildings you destroyed on that planet. The way it used to work before is the only thing you had to destroy was the town hall. As soon as you destroyed the town hall, the match was over, and you would win. You would get your Aquium. So the matches were much quicker. They were much faster because you only were required to destroy the one building. You only had to destroy town hall. On top of that, because before you couldn't actually invade other players, you would only be placed against bots, the amount of Aquium that you got per match was between, at least at my level, was between 2,000 and 3,000 per invasion. So you would earn 2,000 or 3,000 Aquium for like a 30-second invasion, because that's all it would take. All you would have to do is go right up to their town hall, destroy the town hall, and boom, like 2,000 to 3,000 Aquium for like 30 seconds. So now, because you have to destroy all of the buildings, the time it takes to complete an invasion is much longer. So now it's about 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes, something like that. So now it takes way longer. And on top of that, because Aquium, what you're rewarded is tied to how much Aquium the person has in their storage, as well as how much of their buildings you've destroyed, you actually wind up with less Aquium than you did before. So let's say you invade a planet and that player hasn't been playing in a while, so they only have 1,000 Aquium in their storage. And you destroy 100% of the buildings on that planet. You only get a fraction of a percent of their total Aquium storage. So if they only have 1,000, you're only going to get something like 100 or maybe like 50 Aquium. You only get a fraction of what they have in their storage. And that's at completing it at 100%. So what happens is now you'll wind up invading planets where players haven't been playing in a while, so they have almost nothing in terms of Aquium in their storage. So you go through all of this work, you play through 2 minutes to invade this planet, destroy all of their buildings, and you get next to nothing as a reward. So now you've wasted all this time, and you get like next to nothing back for your efforts. So before, you would get 2,000 or 3,000 Aquium for invading a bot and destroy its town hall. That invasion would only take you 30 or 40 seconds. You would get 2,000 or 3,000 Aquium for that. What I found recently is when I invade players, I'm only getting between 1 and 500 Aquium and spending 2 or 3 minutes doing it. So it's taking way longer and I'm getting way less. It feels like a giant waste of time. So what my proposal is to create some kind of filter. So if players have under a certain amount of Aquium in their storage, they would basically be off limits. You wouldn't even be able to invade them, because if you were to invade them, what you would get as a reward, even if you destroyed all of their buildings, would be so small, it would not even be worth the effort of invading them. So I kind of discussed this privately, and I put this in the forum thread as well, so you guys can follow along. You can give me your feedback on this. But I kind of want to set the limit at like 30 or 40,000. So if you have beneath 30 or 40,000 Aquium, nobody would even be able to invade your planet. You would effectively be taken off the list of potential planets that can be invaded because you don't meet this threshold, the minimal requirement in order to be invaded. So if any player were to invade you, because you have less than 30 or 40,000, the amount of Aquium they would get for their efforts just would not be worth the effort putting into it to earn that Aquium. It wouldn't be worth it. So what I want to do is establish like a baseline threshold. So once you go under this threshold, you literally cannot be invaded. And I want to set that threshold at probably around 40,000, sounds about right, because your maximum Aquium capacity is currently 400,000. So 40,000 would be 10% of that. So if you're at 10% of your Aquium storage, if you're lower than that, you cannot be invaded whatsoever. So you would be untouchable. But once you exceed that limit, now players can actually invade you. So this would do one of two things. This would protect players who don't have a lot of Aquium in their storage and are afraid that they're going to be invaded, and they're going to go from what little they have in their storage to nothing. So it would actually protect those players. And on top of that, it would also give players who are actively invading planets better rewards, because they would only be invading planets that have lots of Aquium in their storage, so they would be getting more back when they actually invade another player. So this is good on two fronts. It accomplishes both of those things. So that's something that I want to implement. And then now we'll go back to trampolines. So we'll scroll back up here. I kind of want to let this be the last thing I talk about, because I have a lot to say on trampolines actually. So right now, trampolines are basically useless. They do very little damage, and really the only thing they do is push you around. So we'll go ahead. We'll try to get these other traps out of the way. And we'll push this right here. There we go. So now it's right by the landing zone. So I'll go ahead and show you guys what happens when you spring a trampoline trap. That's all it does. Did you see that? It does very little damage and just throws you a distance away. It's not very useful. In fact, the only in which way it's useful, so as you can see here, this is where I landed. Now watch what happens when I do this. I'm going to place a few, okay, maybe that's too big. Let's do this. So see where I'm at. Now I have mountains surrounding me. Now we'll go ahead and we'll redo this invasion. Spring this trap. Now I'm stuck. You see this? I'm trapped here. If someone were to use this strategy on their planet, they could effectively take you right off the map. They can trap you in a section of the map where now you can no longer do anything. I can't attack any buildings. Well, I was able to hit those two. But you see the point. The point here is this is the only functionality of the trampoline. It literally is not useful for anything else other than to intentionally trap players so that they're unable to attack the planet. It's not useful for anything else. This is the only thing in which you could possibly use the trampoline for, is basically to troll players. So let's go ahead and get out of this. We'll go to editor. We'll get rid of this stuff. And then I'll talk about, or I'll further explain what I mean by this. So let's look at each of the other traps. So the regular trap, which I'll just call the bear trap. What does the bear trap do? It snaps you and it immobilizes you. It stuns you for a few seconds and does a small amount of damage. Is it useful? Absolutely. Why is it useful? Because it stuns you, and when you're stunned, the other turrets have a chance to fire at you and whittle away your HP while you're stuck in this position. Now bombs. What do bombs do? When you walk over a bomb, it explodes and does a massive amount of damage to you in a one-time attack. So let's say you've just taken a lot of damage from turrets and you only have like 1/3 of your HP left. You walk over a bomb, it explodes, boom, you're dead. You have lost the planet invasion. So are bombs useful? Absolutely. Trampolines are useful, or I mean not trampolines. Bear traps are useful, bombs are useful. Now what about spikes? What do spikes do? You walk over the spikes and they spring and they hit you. The problem with spikes is once they hit you that first time, now they've given away their position, so now you know exactly where the spikes are, and they don't do enough damage to offset this, I guess, lapse in strategy because it reveals its position. So because spikes can hit you multiple times, obviously it should do less damage than bombs that only hit you once. So bombs, because it only hits you one time, it has to have more damage in that one impact. Because spikes can hit you multiple times, it has to have less damage for bounce. That makes sense, right? But the problem is, A, the spikes move too slowly. Every time they pop up, there's like a good 1 or 2 seconds before it pops up again, which gives you more than enough time to run out of the way. And once it's done that, it also reveals its position. So now you know exactly where the spikes are, so you know to avoid that area. So are spikes useful? Well, it's kind of a toss-up. It's like a 50-50. If they were to move faster, and if they were to do a little bit more damage, I think, yeah, they could be useful in certain situations. But are they useful right now? Nah, I would say not really. So those are the 3 traps so far. Bear traps, very useful. Bombs, very useful. Spikes, kind of give or take. What about trampolines? What do trampolines do? They do very little damage and just basically push you away. Is that useful? Can you think of a situation in which that is useful? Not really. The only thing in which that is useful for is to trap a player in kind of like a dead zone or an out of bounds area where they effectively can't do anything else on that planet. So basically trolling. The only thing that it's useful for is trolling the player to prevent them from actually being able to hit any of the other buildings. In any other situation, it's not very useful. So how do we salvage this? How do we fix the trampoline so that it's actually useful? So I actually have a couple of ideas on how to address this problem. A, and the most obvious one, just get rid of trampolines. They're not very useful. They don't have a whole lot of functionality other than to trap players. And trapping players is a very cheap strategy, and it's not very, it's not a very useful tactic. So, again, you could just get rid of them wholesale and avoid the issue altogether. Let's assume that you don't want to do that, though. Let's say you want to keep the trampoline in the game. How do we salvage this? Well, when you select these other traps, like, for instance, the bear trap, as you can see, it doesn't occupy the entirety of a cell. So while it's in the cell, you can see right here, where my cursor is moving, you have space to add something else. Now, unfortunately, right now, let's say I were to select another trap, you can see the bomb has the same issue. It occupies a portion of the cell and not the whole cell. But I cannot combine these two things into the same cell. As you can see right here, it's redded out. I cannot do that. So This is one of the things you could potentially do in order to make trampolines useful. Allow trampolines. So let's actually rotate this a little bit. Okay, I'm still running into the same issue. There we go. That'll work. Allow trampolines to be placed in the same cell as other traps. Now this is how it becomes useful. You can decrease the amount in which the trampoline pushes you back so that it only pushes you back far enough where it pushes you into the, area in which it engages the other trap. So, for instance, how I have it set up right here, you have the trampoline and you have the bear trap. What would happen is when you step on the trampoline, it would push you, and by that push does damage, and then it pushes you on top of the bear trap. The bear trap snares you, and that also does damage, and while it's also damaging you, obviously the bear trap stuns you. You could also pair this up with the bombs. So let's put the bombs here. Try to circle this around. So as you can see in this example, you have a bomb, and then you have the springboard trap, the trampoline. You would walk on the trampoline, it would push you right on top of the bomb, and then the bomb would explode. This is a potential use for a trampoline. Now it becomes useful. What is the purpose of the trampoline? Is to push you in the way of another trap. So it's like an assist. It assists other traps by pushing you into the direction of where you've already laid a trap. The problem is right now that these individual traps take up a whole cell while only occupying a small percentage of that cell. But what happens is, if I were to try to line this up where, let's say I try to put the trap over here and I do a few tests and I can find this trap, if I run over it, it will push me exactly where this bomb is. Okay, well, that might be useful if you run over the trap way over here, but what if I were to just remove this trap and put an ice tower there instead? Now instead of having, well, maybe the trap will work, maybe the trap won't work, now I put a turret there, the turret will always work in every circumstance. So rather than having like a maybe it'll damage you, you can put a turret there and it's like a surefire, this will absolutely damage you. So which of these two things do you think is more useful? Consistent, stable damage where you know when you place a turret there, it will absolutely damage whoever's going to be invading you, or place a trampoline there and maybe the player will run right past the trampoline without it even engaging it. Maybe they will engage it, maybe the trampoline will push them in a wrong direction. So maybe it'll throw them in a random direction where they don't land on the bomb, and maybe it will land on the bomb. So it's like a 1 in 3 chance that it'll actually work. Which of these is a better scenario? The ice tower, where it's always going to work, or the trampoline, where it's like a 1 in 3 chance that it's going to work? Obviously, the ice tower is going to be the better option when you have these two options here. So because of that, trampolines really seem like a waste of space on their own. But if you implement it in such a way where it assists other traps by occupying the same cell, so when you run over the trampoline, it pushes you onto that trap, now it becomes useful. Why does it become useful? Because what I mentioned in the earlier parts of this stream, because of the fact that a trap is so small and it doesn't occupy the entire cell, you have a chance to run past the trap without engaging it. By putting a trampoline in the same cell, now you can no longer avoid that trap. If you try to run around that trap, you'll actually target the trampoline, and the trampoline will push you into the trap. So now it takes away that possibility of dodging these traps. That's what makes the trampoline useful. So that's one thing you can do. So then the question becomes, so before I go on to the next point, what would upgrading the traps do in terms of make it more functionally useful? So for instance, if at level 1, if the purpose of a trap is just to push you into the path of another trap, and at level 1 it's already accomplishing that, what benefit would you get from upgrading the trap further? So this is what you do. At level 1, the trap pushes you, and let's say its base damage is 20, okay? And it's just a regular wooden trap as you see here. At level 2, this wooden flat surface of the trap has metal studs on it. So because it has metal studs on it, instead of being a flat wooden surface, maybe it hits you with a little bit more damage. So now it goes from a base damage of 20 now to a base damage of 22. Then you level up to level 3. Now what happens? Those metal studs now become small metal spikes. So now those small metal spikes hit you, and it does a little bit more damage than before. So now that 22 damage is upgraded to 24. Now you go to level 4. Those metal spikes get a little bit bigger. So now they're sharper metal spikes. Again, they do a little bit more damage. Then level 5. Now you have more metal spikes. So instead of just having them around the perimeter, maybe you have like a big metal one in the center. So now you have a metal spike in the center and then metal spikes around the perimeter, smaller metal spikes. There's all different things that you can do in order to make the trampoline more useful. So you would upgrade it, and it would upgrade the base damage of the trampoline itself without upgrading how far it pushes you. It only pushes you far enough where you land on top of the trap that occupies the same cell. That's number 1. Number 2, the next thing you could do in a similar fashion of the thing that I just described is repurpose the trap so that repurpose the trampoline so that it is no longer a trampoline. Now instead of being a trampoline, it's like a crusher. So as you can see here, it's kind of like a spring on like a flat wooden surface. So you walk on top of it and the spring engages and pushes you forward. Instead of that, it would look something like this. Let's grab another one of these trampolines. Okay, so look at how this looks right here. You have one trampoline here and one trampoline here. What would happen is when you walk over it, instead of being bounced, this is what happened. It would crush you. It would snap like you, just like the bear trap. So it would kind of look like this if I had to draw a picture. Let's say this spring is what the trap currently looks like, and this is the actual board. So you step on the board and it'll actually push you like that. So you step on the trampoline, it pushes you. Instead of doing that, draw another spring. Now it's more like a clamp. What happens is it snaps you. So it would look like this. So this would be position 2. So yeah, let me kind of erase this. It kind of looks sloppy. So this would be position 2. And then this would be the 3rd position. As you can see, it started here, it went here, then snapped. So this is how it would work. It would crush you. So by doing this, it would do, let's say like 50 damage or so. So this is another way in which you can make the trampoline useful, is instead of making it a trampoline, making it some kind of crusher. So it actually snaps you. So this would be kind of a similar kind of concept as like the bear trap, except instead of the bear trap just grabbing you by like the ankle or leg, like a real life bear trap would do, so it would immobilize you and stun you, this would just be pure damage. It would just crush you, and then it would just disengage, and that's it. So that's another thing you can do. Another thing you could do is just repurpose the trampoline. Instead of being used on your home world, so on your planet, it can be potentially taken out of the game. It was no longer used on your planet, but can be repurposed for something else down the road. So this is what it would be repurposed for. So we'll bring back Pan again. It would be used for dungeon modes. So let's say this box, this is the dungeon. So actually, let me just go ahead and draw a box. Let's say this is your dungeon. Let's say on this wall, you have spikes. It's like this. Then you put the trampoline here. So we'll kind of draw a little indicator like this. If you draw a little person. Now if you were to step on the trampoline, it would push you into the spike wall. So this is another thing you can do. You can repurpose the trampoline. You don't have to get rid of it. You don't have to get all this hard work that you put into creating the actual mechanics, this push motion. You can keep all of that. All you have to do is repurpose it and not use it for your planet invasions. Use it for dungeon mode. So now in dungeon mode, you would be, progressing through the dungeon, completely unaware of any kind of trap or anything. Then you step on this thing, and it pushes you into a spike wall. That's one thing you can do. What else can you do? Well, what if you had a corridor? So rather than a giant room like that, what if you had a single hallway? Now in this hallway, you have like a pendulum kind of trap. So you have a blade that kind of hangs from the okay, whoops. Let me select paintbrush. You have a blade that kind of looks like this. So what this blade does is it swings like a pendulum. So this is the corridor, and the blade swings like this. So it protects the path of the corridor, and what you have to do is wait until the blade swings, and in that time before it swings back the other direction, that's when you run through, okay? So you have to, imagine this is the pendulum, you have to time it and run right past it, just like that. Now, you could have a trampoline at the end of the corridor, so even once you've ran past the pendulum blade, so imagine this is the pendulum blade, you've run past it, you can engage the trampoline and it'll push you back, and then you could potentially get hit by that pendulum blade. So you can use it for corridors, so narrow hallways, or you can use it for a big room where it can push you into a spike wall. So those are two things you can do with the trampolines by repurposing it for something other than regular planet invasions. You could just add it to the dungeon mode. But if you need to keep it for planet invasions, the two things you can do is make it occupy the same cell as a different trap. So its purpose is to push you in the path of another trap, or make it so it just clamps you like that and crushes you. So those are just a few ideas that I have. Right now, the trampoline, in my opinion, is the most useless trap. The only thing that the only purpose that it serves, the only function that it has, is to trap players in out of bounds areas, preventing them from attacking your planet. And even in that case, it only works maybe like 1/3 of the time. And once you've been trapped once and you know where that trap is, every subsequent invasion after that, you know to avoid that area so that you don't get trapped again. So even in that situational, anecdotal evidence that you have of, okay, it can trap somebody in this one instance, fool me once, shame on you, or shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you, or no, I got that backwards. Anyway, the point is once you fool me once, once I fall for that trick once, I'm not going to fall for it again. So while, yeah, okay, you can trap me out of bounds at one time, now I know how your planet's layout is, where your traps are, I'm not going to fall for that trick again. So right now, trampolines are just purely useless. They don't have any real necessity to your planet defense. Every other trap is pretty good. Spikes need a little bit of a rebalance, and I've already explained what to do with those. They should do slightly more damage, and they should be faster. They should also be a permanent trap. Instead of attacking you a couple of times and then disappearing, they should be a permanent trap where it doesn't disappear. And I mean, that'll do it. I think this is probably the longest podcast that I've done so far. I think it's gone on for like an hour, 20 minutes or something like that now. So I actually don't have a timer, so I have no idea how long this has been going. But I want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you stuck through this whole thing. I know this was a really long one. There was a lot of topics to cover. The forum thread is already complete. All you have to do is go to the link as shown here, and you can follow along for all the different things that I have planned. And then you can give your feedback on the different topics and suggestions that I've made in this video. So when this video gets published to YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Make sure to check out the other videos on this channel and make sure to do the same. If you want to financially support Unnyworld, make sure to check out the Steam store where we are offering the Founders Pack. And in a couple of weeks, we should have a new pack available for you guys for Christmas, hopefully. And if you're feeling extra generous, make sure to check out the Patreon and donate there. Every dollar helps, especially in the early parts of this, or early parts of the game's development. Every dollar that we make gets reinvested into the game to produce new content. So it's like dollar in, dollar out, nothing is wasted, and it helps us produce these new features much faster so you guys can experience these things sooner in the game. And that should do it for today. Because of my kind of wonky schedule right now, I don't know how soon I'm going to have another podcast available for you guys. It might be a couple of weeks. Planet or Battle Royale should be actually implemented in the game either next week or the week after that. After that, I'll be probably doing a podcast based on the different mechanics in that and how we can potentially improve Battle Royale in the future. So add different features and kind of polish certain things with that. But I can't tell you guys how soon to expect that podcast. That might be 2 or 3 weeks out. I definitely want to do one for the end of the year, for like New Year's and around Christmas. So look forward to that. And I will see you all next time. And I want to wish everybody to have a very beautiful day.